Welcome to OLC 4.0, Term 1A, Class 2. We are in Unit 1, Lesson 1, looking at Assignment 1. And I am Jillian Percy. Okay, here as always is our contact information. I give this every day just because I figure, it's easy to lose the front page of those units when you're working on them. If you're trying to call me in the studio, 1-800-465-7144. If you want to listen on the radio, 91.9 FM. The Zoom is nnec-on-ca.zoom.us/j/924-617-3555. I have included that as a link in welcome emails to the majority of the students. If I haven't given you one yet, if you're like just signed up today, then let me know that I've left you off the list and I will add you. I do get students kind of added every single day, so I try to be mindful of that, but it may not have happened quite yet. If you're just trying to talk to me about an assignment and you don't want to be on air, which is fine, the office number is 1-800-667-3703, and my extension is 2211. If you want to email me, jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. I can also be contacted on Facebook, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. One thing to be mindful of, I am not on my work Facebook all the time. So if you message me at 9 o'clock at night, I'm not going to see it until the next morning when I get to the office and it shows up in a message to me, okay? YouTube is set up for you guys. It is where I store the recordings of the classes. So I have this year's classes will be recorded there, but I also have last year's courses. So some people work really quickly, and you may have already zoomed through the first 4 or 5 assignments, and you're kind of impatiently waiting for me to get to the next ones. If that's happening to you, look at term 2A or 2B from last year, which would be in the spring, and you should be able to get information about how to complete the assignments. You can also just call me and talk to me. I'd be happy to explain something if you're not sure. Any type of work should always go to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. If you send it just to me and something happened to me, nobody else could access it. This way, if something happened, like if I fell sick and had to take some time off, you would still be able to access your work. The secretary could pull it up, okay? You also want to include your full name, the course name, the assignment number, and the name of the assignment if it's on there, like if it's resume or cover letter or whatever it is. If it asks for a rough and a good draft, please send them both in, but remember to label them. Sometimes people just kind of do a rough draft that's a little bit messier, but not a whole lot. And I'm kind of guessing, so it's really better if you just label it. Remember that I have four or 5 courses at least that I'm working on. So it's not always obvious. And sometimes the assignments are very similar, like resumes show up in more than one assignment. So I won't necessarily know just by looking at the assignment which course it belongs to, okay? And some of you are taking 2 English courses with me, or you took a course with me last year or whatever. So you really do want to include it just so I make sure it gets in the right file, okay? Okay, so learning goals. Today we're looking at sentences, and one of the expectations for the course is that students can write incomplete and correct sentences. Sentences are the building blocks of any type of writing. And if you're having any kind of difficulty with writing them, it can make this course really difficult. So even though it may seem kind of basic, we're going to start at this in first important level. I know teaching grammar kind of fell out of fashion the last 20 years. So if you're a younger student, you may not have ever heard a definition of what makes a proper sentence. I've heard people give definitions like it expresses a complete thought, and people aren't sure what that means, right? I've had people put an entire page worth of information and then put a period at the end because that whole thing was their complete thought. So we're going to talk about what makes a sentence. By the end of today's lesson, you should feel confident that you can identify a complete and an incomplete sentence, that you can identify the subject and the predicate in a sentence, identify the different parts of speech in a complete subject, and use your knowledge of a good sentence to write several sentences on a topic I'm going to assign. Okay, so that's our goals for the end of this lesson. All right, so this brings us to the beginning of Unit 1. The basic contact information is always repeated here. This has kind of, I actually have two emails. I've got one through Google, just like you guys do, and it's fine if you want to use that. Occasionally, I have students kind of share their work with me, which works really well from Google. Doesn't work so well from my .on.ca one. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so the CA sits together. There we go. I'm always happy to talk to students, so please feel free to call and talk to me about any difficulties you might be having with an assignment. I happen to be in a meeting, I might have to ask you to call back, but otherwise I'm generally pretty good. Keep in mind this term, so for the next 9 weeks, I am in the studio from 2 to 3, so I'm not at my desk and I'm not able to answer the phone. Okay, so here is the beginning page. It says Introduction. This course is designed to help you acquire and demonstrate the cross-curricular literacy skills that are evaluated by the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. If the course is completed, it will meet the provincial literacy requirement for graduation and also be granted as a full credit in English, which I think we talked about yesterday. And this is important because sometimes people need 4 credits for English, and this counts as a grade 12 credit. So even if you did well on the literacy test, you might still be taking this course just to kind of complete a grade 12 credit. In this course, you're going to read a variety of informational, narrative, and graphic texts, and you will produce a variety of forms of writing, including summaries, information paragraphs, news reports, and opinion pieces. You will also manage and maintain a portfolio containing a record of your reading experiences and samples of your writing. So please save every assignment. You need a great deal of them for your portfolio. If you're not sure what you want to save and you're short on space, check lesson 20 at the very end of unit 4, and it gives you a list of what assignments you need to have. This course is broken down into 4 units with 5 lessons each. Keep in mind, each lesson might have multiple assignments. Like we're on lesson 1, but it actually has 5 assignments. So that's something to keep in mind. In total, for the entire course, there are 20 lessons, and including a culminating portfolio. I believe we have 43 assignments in this course. You will be encouraged to have regular contact with your teacher during the course. And also throughout the course, you'll be asked to evaluate your own progress by responding to feedback from the teacher, and it comes up in journals as well. If you're willing to put the time and effort into this course, I am sure that you'll be successful. Ask for help if you need the help. Okay, evaluation. So the coursework, all your assignments from units 1 to unit 4 counts for 70% of your overall mark. Then at the very end, we put together a portfolio of kind of the most important works, and that counts for 10% of your mark. And then, it says final exam. There's no longer a final exam. It's a culminating activity now. And that part is worth 20% of your mark. Normally that takes people around about a week or so to do, although some people do it quicker. Now, the strange thing with this course, I don't know why, but the very first unit is the longest unit. It has the most assignments. And sometimes people get discouraged and are like, oh, if this is going to be this level of work for all the units, it's going to be too much, but it's not. Unit 2 only has 11 assignments. Unit 3 only has 10 assignments. And then Unit 4 only has 5 assignments, although they are longer assignments. So it actually kind of gets quicker as you go along in that sense, okay? Oh yeah, before we begin any assignment, quick review of a proper sentence. I think we were just about to start this the other day. Every sentence you write must have a subject, which includes a noun or a pronoun, and a predicate, which has to include a verb. It also must express a complete thought. That is, it has to make sense on its own. Now, this is the thing I find is sometimes tricky for students. Sometimes what I mean by a complete thought and what students think I mean, often it's much longer what students are thinking. So if I said the pizza is, and I just stopped, that's an incomplete thought. I have to say the pizza is hot, or the pizza is ready, or the pizza is horrible. I need to finish my sentence, right? And then I would put a period. But I don't need to tell you all about the amazing, wonderful pizza and how I made it. It doesn't have to be that big. That's a paragraph, not a sentence, okay? So just make sure that the person isn't kind of left hanging, wondering what you're about to say. So we are talking about grammar, which is not always the most exciting thing, or maybe is never the most exciting thing, I guess. But why are we talking about grammar? What is grammar? Grammar is just basically the structure that would be organize each language, right? Often, if you try and translate a sentence or a story from one language to another and you do it word for word, it can make no sense, right? You have the vocabulary, but it doesn't make sense because how each language organizes how they say things is completely different. We structure our sentences differently. We convey information through different types of words or word order or endings. And some languages may have information that indicate when an action happened or who performed the action, the length of time it occurred, whether it occurred over a continuous amount of time. Many other things can be conveyed with how we organize our language. Okay. Generally, grammar is the hard part of learning a new language, right? It's often not too hard to remember like new words, like makus meaning bear, right? But putting it into a sentence and saying the bear is chasing me, that's a whole different thing because how it would be said in a new language is different than how I might say it in English. Okay. Now, I'm going to get a little bit detailed here, but stick with me. There are two main types of languages in the entire world. One is analytic and one is synthetic. Analytical languages rely on word order, literally what order the words come in the sentence, and that helps them convey meaning and relationships. Synthetic languages use endings, often at the end of verbs or nouns, and that will convey the information about who was the one doing the action, who received the action. So we're going to talk about those two different language types because that is one of the trickiest things about learning English. So English is an analytical language. It's sometimes also called an isolating language because they use a strict word order to convey who is the main topic of the sentence, who is doing the action, who is the action acting on. Okay. Other examples of sentences like that would be like the Chinese and Vietnamese languages are also analytical in that sense. In these types of languages, analytical languages, each word typically, not always, but typically represents a single concept, and the relationship between the words is determined by what order they are in the sentence. So in English, if I said the cat chased the mouse, that means that the cat is the one doing the chasing and the mouse is the thing being chased. If I changed it around and said the mouse chased the cat, it's all the same words, but the sentence meaning has completely changed. Now you've got a little bitty mouse chasing after a cat. Synthetic languages, which are sometimes called inflected languages, use what are called inflectional endings to convey these types of relationships between words. Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, and German are some examples of synthetic languages. My understanding is that Ojibwe, Ojibwe, and Cree are considered a type of synthetic language as well. So, for example, in Latin, the sentence filius patrem amat, the son loves the father, conveys the same meaning as the English sentence above, the son loves the father, but the relationship is conveyed through the endings, like the us and the m and the at. Those are the endings that say who is the person doing the loving, who is the person receiving the loving. Okay, so verbs are very important often in synthetic languages, and there might be a lot of inflectional endings added to the end of the verb to help convey meaning. For English, we would use separate words in a specific order to convey who's the one doing the acting and who's the one receiving the acting, okay? Here's a quick example from the Ojibwe People's Dictionary. Here we have the word runaway in the other direction. And we have, and I'm probably not going to say it right, although I tried to listen to this, I might pull up to it. Anime batu, she or he runs away in the other direction. And then we have anima badigweg, they run away in the other direction. So the difference is the ag there at the end kind of conveys that it's they instead of he or she, right? The beginning is the same, but it's not a separate word. It's just added on to the verb. That's an example of a synthetic language, okay? If you want to see more, I don't know if anyone has seen this, probably you guys have, but if you check over here, the Ojibwe People's Dictionary, you can search in Ojibwe if you know the Ojibwe for a phrase. You can search in English if you want to, and then it shows you the different formats. You can also listen to it. Let me see if it'll let me.
Anime Batu.
Did you hear that? And then we've got
Anime Batut.
okay. By the way, the ES and the GJ just indicates the initials of who's doing the speaking because they would say it's slightly different. Okay. So this is one way to show you, right? Not separate words, but word parts. Okay. That can make it tricky sometimes when you're, if you're used to how Ojibwe or Ojibwe organizes their grammar, then switching over to English where you need to have separate words and have a subject in front, not just the verb there in front, that can be tricky for some people. Okay, in your unit, page 9 to page 16 includes a whole bunch of grammar basics. I'm not necessarily going to read every bit of that. I'm going to kind of cover what I think is important right now, and some things we're going to have to kind of skip over and come back later. Other parts I'm going to go into more detail on because I think they're more important. This is the basic parts of speech. There are only 8 main categories or main jobs that words do. There's a lot of little subcategories. Just think about like there's the category of fruit, there may be some smaller categories, but there's 8 main categories. There's articles, which introduce a noun, an or the. There's nouns, which are person, place, thing, or idea, like doctor, street, tape, or war. Pronouns just replace a noun, she, he, you. There's a whole bunch of those. Adjectives describe or modify a noun, things like big, French, pretty, shiny, sunny, hot. Verbs show an action like jump, dream, drive, or they may show a state of being. Am, is, are, was, were, will. And some other ones, originally this was part of yesterday's thing, but we ran out of time. Adverbs describe or modify verbs, but they can also modify adjectives or another adverb. Words like very, carefully, tomorrow, next, slowly, happily, gently. Conjunctions join 2 clauses or sometimes 2 phrases together. For and nor, but yet so, or after, if, although. There's a lot of them. That's just a small example. And then prepositions. There are so many prepositions in English, and I actually think they're kind of the hardest part of speech to understand because they can be very phrase specific, like they can be different in each sentence. We'll talk more about that later. Basically, a preposition is a word that helps connect a noun or a pronoun to the other parts of the sentence, okay? They don't always, but it's very common for them to come after a verb. And then interjections are kind of words that are shouted or yelled to get attention or show emotion, like, hey, no, wow, ouch. They're not usually like part of the sentence. It's often like that might be the beginning of a sentence or kind of in place of a sentence. Okay. So these little guys are parts of speech. Okay. They're just a job. But parts of a sentence, sometimes people haven't heard of parts of a sentence, they've heard of parts of speech. There are 2 main parts of a sentence. There's the subject and there is the predicate. That's really all there ever is. The subject tells you who or what is the main actor or the main topic in the sentence. It has to include either a noun or a pronoun. It has to. There's no way around it, okay? It might include other words like articles or adjectives. The predicate tells you what the subject is doing, or I'm going to say add the word being here, okay? Because sometimes that's there too. Being. It must include a verb. It might include things like adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions. Occasionally might include adjectives as well. It's not as common, but it can. Again, in English, the subject comes first, okay? It isn't always the very first word in the sentence, but it absolutely has to come before the verbs telling you what's going on, okay? A sentence could be as simple as 2 words, as long as it has a subject and a predicate, but it does need to express a complete thought. So some examples are things like dogs run, he fell. So he is my subject, fell is my predicate. Birds fly, bird is my subject, fly is my predicate. Susan tripped, monsters lurk, John is. Okay, now there's a problem here. Is this a complete sentence? Why or why not? I have a subject and I have a verb. So does that count? No, because it doesn't express a complete thought. I haven't told you what. I could tell you John is angry, John is tall, John is here. I can't just say John is. It doesn't really make any sense. I have to explain it. So I'm going to put John is here. Okay. So you can do a two-word sentence. They aren't common. And usually for a course like this, they're not going to be that useful because we need more words to express our thoughts. But just at its very basic, this is possible. Okay. So why does this even matter? Why am I spending so much time talking about this? Because when we are talking, which most of us do a lot more talking than we do writing, we often drop the subject out of the sentence because the person we're talking to already knows who or what we're talking about. But when we're writing, we can't do that. So if I'm talking to my friend and she says, "Hey, what do you want to do tonight?" I say, "Let's go dancing," or "Go dancing." That's fine to say. But in writing, I have to have a subject. So I would need to write, "I want to go dancing." I is my subject. It's telling you who or what wants to do the action. This is the most common grammatical mistake I see in the course. This is why I'm talking about it, okay? In English, you cannot usually start with the verb. There are some rare exceptions, which we'll talk about later, but generally we start with the noun, a person, place, thing, or concept, or the pronoun that stands in its place. Okay. Let's see here. There are two main types of nouns. The common noun are things like girl, town. The girl is 5 years old. Girl is the subject. Proper noun are like specific examples, like not girl, but the girl's name is Maria, or not town, but Dryden. So if I said Dryden is close to us, Dryden is the subject. Remember that it might also be a pronoun. A pronoun is a word that can take the place of a noun, especially if a noun is a long word. It's common for us to replace it and stick like the word, if I talk about uh, the New York Empire State Building. Instead of writing that out and saying that out over and over again, I might write it the next time. It fell down, or it is beautiful, or whatever. So we use them to replace it, often just because it's kind of convenient. The subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. So those are the ones that you would use at the beginning of a sentence. She is always late for work. She is your subject. There are also some indefinite pronouns that get used as a subject. Indefinite pronouns aren't pointing to a specific person. They're more general. Words like everyone, everybody, someone, somebody, each one, nobody, no one, anybody, anyone. Everyone is happy to see summer. Everyone is the subject. Okay, and you can see again, it's kind of right there at the beginning. So a sentence is a lot like a map that shows how a city is one small part of a region or a province. If you look at this green bar, the green bar is the whole sentence. A large bald eagle soared over the treetops. The complete subject is a large bald eagle, right? The simple subject is just the noun, eagle, right? Then we have the complete predicate over here in blue, soared over the treetops. The simple predicate is just soared, eagle soared. It's not quite a perfect sentence. I could say the eagle soared, but it does work. These other parts are words that kind of expand or explain the main part of the sentence better, right? Here's some adjectives. Here's a little prepositional phrase. So we need to be aware of those. Adjectives can be a part of the complete subject. We use adjectives to describe nouns or pronouns. They often, not always, but often come right before the noun they're describing. They can describe how something looks, smells, feels, tastes. I could describe how many of something or give you an opinion on something. So it'd be really common for a subject to include an article. Remember, the articles are a, an, and the, plus an adjective, plus a noun. And these are often called like a noun phrase. So all of those words together would be considered the complete subject of a sentence. So below, I've got some examples of noun phrases. These are not a complete sentence, but they are a complete beginning of a sentence, I guess. The crazy monkey. Monkey is the simple subject. The crazy monkey is the complete subject. A ripe red apple. Apple is your simple subject. A ripe red apple, the whole thing is the complete subject. Complete subject, the old skyscraper. The simple part of it is just the noun, skyscraper. Complete subject, 8 rowers. Simple subject is just the noun, rowers. Different coats is the complete subject. The simple subject is just coats. I'm asking this because I'm going to ask you guys to do this in the first assignment, just so you know. Yep, singular nouns usually have an article in front of them. By the way, singular just means that there's only one of something, and they may be part of the complete subject. We've talked about this. Plural nouns do not use a or an. Those mean the idea of one. They can use the word the, because the is more trying to mean like something specific. So I could say a desk broke, like any desk, or I could say the desk broke, like the desk we all are looking at or whatever. I can't say trees fell, but I could say the trees fall. Or I could eliminate it if I don't need it. I could say trees are falling, right? Trees is kind of more general. The trees fell is more specific. I'm talking about some specific trees. We use an in front of a word that starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, or U. So a is in front of every other letter, right? A big desk, a small tree, a shirt, or an apple, an owl, an avalanche. And the reason is just because in English, it sounds weird to say apple, owl. We kind of add the N to make it sound more fluid and make it clear that it's its own word and not part of the second word. Okay. Yeah, we've talked about that basically. Okay. I'm worried about having enough time, so I'm going to kind of move on from that. Yeah, if you look at these simple sentences, do they have a subject or not? Just going to kind of quickly go through some of these to get the idea across. She cries. Is there a noun or a pronoun that is the main topic of the sentence? Yes, she. Oh, well, let me do it. Okay. Are going swimming? No. This whole thing is all verbs. There's no subject there. Okay. Peter and Daniel like to fish. Well, Peter and Daniel are actually working together. They're both the subject, right? It could be more than one person. Was watching the fireworks? No, right? I can't say the fireworks was watching. Somebody or something was watching the fireworks, but it's not telling us what it is. So there is no subject, which by the way means this is not a complete sentence. Happily walking down the street? Nope, because it doesn't tell me who's happily walking down the street. The branches were waving in the breeze. Yes, the branches right here, it's telling me what they're talking about. The branches are what we're talking about. Typed a message. Nope, because I don't know who typed the message. Coming back. Nope, because I don't know who's coming back. Climbed a tree. Nope, because I don't know who's climbed the tree. So don't forget your subject, okay? Kind of quickly, some sentences might have a compound subject like dogs and cats love to run. Hot dogs and hamburgers are being cooked. Jason and Kevin have arrived for the party. You can have adjectives in front of those nouns too. Like I could have creepy monsters and scary ghosts were out for Halloween. And that whole bit, creepy monsters and scary ghosts, would be a complete or what they call a compound subject. Okay. Because the verbs aren't coming until afterwards. Okay. Just a case. So our first assignment, part A, is I want you to circle the simple subject, which is the noun or the pronoun, and underline the whole subject. Put a box around each adjective that occurs inside the complete subject. And I'm giving you 1/3 of a mark for each done correctly for a total of 1 mark per sentence. So here's our sentence. The tall golden sunflowers swayed with the breeze. Okay, so my noun is sunflowers right away. Okay, I want to underline the whole subject, not the whole sentence, just the whole subject. So it stops right there. Okay, and then my adjectives, I have tall and golden. So I would put, oh, I have boxes for those, sorry. Tall and golden. I could put just one big box there. Might be easier. You guys can put two separate boxes if you want to. Here are some other practice sentences. Taylor Swift is a very popular singer. Okay, so who is the subject? Taylor Swift. And I'm just going to circle her whole name, right? It's kind of one whole subject. It's not Taylor plus a different person named Swift. Now this is interesting because, oh, well, let me do it. Hang on. One of the fussy things about Microsoft here. Okay, I'm going to underline it because it is the whole subject and it is also the simple subject. But there's no adjectives. I haven't described her. Not here in this section, right? I do describe over here, but not here in my subject. Ontario is a huge province. What is my subject? It is the noun Ontario. So I'm going to underline it first because it won't let me do it afterwards. There we go. And then I'm going to grab mine in my circles and do this. You would actually draw the circle, but if I do that, it takes forever and it looks very messy, so I'm not doing it. The happy and excited children ran out to the new playground. Okay, here's my verb. Right in front of it is my subject. So I'm going to grab my circle. I'm going to underline the whole bit. Happy and excited children, underline. Happy, excited are my two adjectives. In this case, I'm probably going to section them off because there's a conjunction between them. And I want to make it clear to my teacher, hint, hint, that I know what an adjective is. Okay. The reason I'm doing some of this is because it doesn't help if I say add some more adjectives to your writing and you're not sure what I mean by an adjective, right? Or if I say, hey, your sentence has no subject, which I say a lot, it doesn't help if you don't know what a subject is. So that's why we're practicing this, okay? Crumpled paper and broken pencils littered the hallway. Now, this is a tricky one. Where are the nouns that are the subject? It's hard because there's actually two. I'm going to underline the whole subject right up until we get to the word littered. Littered is a verb, so I'm going to stop there. And then our nouns are paper and pencils, okay? And then my adjectives are the word crumpled and broken. I'm going to show you one last one just because it's a little bit tricky. The flag of Canada was torn down from outside the courthouse. Okay. My complete subject is the flag of Canada. Okay. This is one of those weirdo ones where Canada isn't my subject. I'm not talking about Canada. I didn't tear Canada down from a courthouse. I can't. I'm standing on Canada, right? I can't do that. But I can tear down a flag. So I'm going to borrow one over here. The flag is actually my noun here. And then weirdly, of Canada is a little adjective prepositional phrase. It's unusual, but you'll see it. Okay. The whole thing until I get to my verbs is still the complete subject. Okay. So then this is what you have over here, and you'll do the exact same thing. Circle the simple subject. Remember, that's the noun or the pronoun. Underline the complete subject, and then put a box around each adjective that occurs inside the complete subject. I'm going to go back and show you one thing. New playground. New is an adjective, but it's not part of my subject. It's part of the predicate. So I'm not going to circle that because it's not part of my subject. So be careful that that doesn't trip you up. Okay. So you get a mark for each sentence. This is basically 10 marks. Okay. The icy waves raced over the jagged rocks. Number 2, the unexpected blizzard blanketed the city in snow overnight. Number 3, Dr. Johnson was the city's most famous surgeon. Number 4, the exhausted and worried parents paced endlessly outside the operation room. Number 4, Thunder Bay is the main airport connecting Northern Ontario to Southern Ontario. Number 5, the fragrant smell of pumpkin pie drifted through the house. Number 6, the strange mirrored windows were a secret passage to another world. Number 7, important ancient Egyptian mummies were discovered many years ago under the pyramids. Number 8, deep sorrow filled the woman's face at the funeral. Number 9, angry protesters and furious police officers clashed in the streets. Feel like that sentence might be different in your book, so check your unit. Number 10, the tired old brown dog and the orange striped cat wandered together through the woods. 9 and 10, I might have made it a little bit easier. I have to check. So if yours is a little bit different than mine, don't worry about it. Use whatever's in your book. Okay, so now we're going to talk about predicates, okay? Um, every predicate has to have a verb. It is the main part of the predicate. It is called the simple predicate. It's got to be there. There are 3 main types of verbs. There are action verbs, there are state of being verbs, and there are helping verbs. So the first type of verb, action verb, describes just what someone's doing. Those are the ones that are really obvious, like run, dream, think, work, sleep, washing, hug, swim, fish, draw, write. The second type is describing their state of being, or what's sometimes called their condition, right? And it's the verb to be. Like if I said, I am hungry, I'm in the condition of being hungry. Or if I said, he is tall, he is in the condition of being tall, right? It's a little bit weird. And those are harder to find sometimes for people because there's no action, right? It's just telling you what the person is or was. So words for that commonly are be, am, is, are, was, were, will be, have been. And then the third type of verb helps another verb. Usually it's helping one of the action verbs. And this ends up creating a verb phrase like I am buying some groceries. So buying is my action verb, am is a helping verb. Or he has been out all night. Has been is the verb phrase. Has is my helping verb. Being is a state of being verb, not an action one. And I've seen sometimes you can have sentences that have like 3 verbs together, like I have been playing the piano, right? Have been and playing are all verbs working together as a team there. Okay. So something to keep in mind if you're looking for your verbs. So just like there's 3 verbs, there also coincidentally happens to be 3 types of predicates. Just kind of works out that way. There's no secret plot there. The simple predicate is just the verb or the verb phrase. If I say Jason threw the ball, threw is the simple predicate. Threw the ball is the complete predicate, right? If I said I am running to the beach, am running is 2 verbs working together. They together are the simple predicate, okay? Am running to the beach, the whole thing is the complete predicate. Sometimes we have something called a compound predicate, and that's when a subject is performing 2 or more actions, and it's going to get joined up by a conjunction, often the word and, but not always, might be the word or. The boys swim and dive in the lake. Swim and dive are both predicates, so compound, right? Compound is 2 things joined. Jenny sings and dances very well. Sings, dances are the 2 actions. The janitor cleans the rooms and fixes broken machinery. Cleans and fixes are the 2 verbs. Okay, so 3 main types of predicates when you're looking for things. This is the one that I think is hardest to recognize. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There are a whole bunch of different things that can be part of the complete predicate, and we are going to talk about them more. If you're familiar with grammar, then things like the direct object, the indirect object, adverbs or adverb phrases, and then prepositional phrases. Those are all part of the complete predicate. A lot of the time, this is kind of a huge generalization, but a lot of the time, the complete predicate is often the more interesting part of the sentence. It's often longer. It's kind of telling you more about it. Okay. Okay, we're going to skip over that. I am going to come back to this if we have time. If you get a chance, finding the subject, let me just see. I'm going to click on it to see if I can get it who it's from because I can't remember.
Let's talk about how you can find the subject.
Okay. I really think that this is probably Kane Academy. Okay. This is a really useful video on finding the subject in a sentence. And if you're stuck and finding the previous exercise really hard, I strongly suggest coming back here and doing this. If I have time So we've got 12 minutes left. I will come back to this, okay? But moving on, part B is about the 7 grandfather teachings. One of the indirectly stated themes in the novel is the importance of walking the red road or the right path in life. You're going to travel with Jimmy, who is the main character in the novel Jimmy Comes Home, as he struggles with various issues that in some way affect us all. Along the way, Jimmy has opportunities to choose which path and which teachings he will follow. Like all of us, Jimmy is not perfect. However, he has resources, including the elders in his community, who try to help him. Robert Checkwich, who is the author, has woven the 7 grandfather teachings into the fabric of his book through their actions or their lack of actions rather than their words. They don't spend a lot of time talking about it, but they do show it. Before we take one step into the course, we want to visit these teachings as they will become your greatest teacher both throughout this course and throughout your life. This is just one story of how the grandfather teachings came to the people. There are a lot of different versions of it. So you may have a slightly different version that you're familiar with, or you may feel like the 7 teachings are not really important or valuable. However, I'm hopeful that you will still continue to be respectful. A lot of the teachings that are talked about here are considered virtues in many different parts of the world. So you may still find something useful in them, even if you don't necessarily think of them in that way. So here is the story. The Creator gave 7 grandfathers, who were very powerful spirits, the responsibility to watch over the people. The grandfathers saw that people were living a hard life. They sent their helper to spend time amongst the people and find a person who could be taught how to live in harmony with creation. Their helper went to the 4 directions to find a person worthy enough to bring to the grandfathers. While the boy was traveling with Otter, they were visited 7 times by spirits who told them about the gifts. And here is what they said. To cherish knowledge is to know wisdom. To know love is to know peace. To honor all of creation is to have respect. Bravery is to face the foe with integrity. Honesty is facing a situation is to be brave. Humility is to know yourself as a sacred part of creation. And truth is to know all of these things. Otter returned to his friend, who, because of the time spent in the spirit world, was now an old man. And the old man gathered all the people around and told them of his journey to the 7 grandfathers' lodge. He explained how to use the gifts, and he explained that the opposite of any of the gifts would lead to ruin. He gave them the understanding of opposites. It was now up to the people to follow the path laid out before them. The old man gave them all they needed for the development of the spiritual side of life. Okay, so part B is you are to think about each of the grandfather teachings. Pick one of the 7 grandfather teachings that you have found important in your life. Write me about half a page about how that teaching has affected you in a positive manner. Afterwards, please go through and underline the complete subject in each sentence. Okay, so for example, if I said, I find honesty is the grandfather teaching which is most important, I is the subject. My father always told me to tell the truth. I underline my father. Okay. The assignment is worth 10 marks. 5 marks is for the content, explaining how the teachings affected your life with specific details as examples. 3 marks for writing in proper sentences and 2 marks for correctly underlining the complete subject. So when I'm talking about 5 marks for content, what do I mean? Well, I mean, really, like, what are you actually saying in your sentences? How has the teaching affected your life? And I want to see specific details as examples. Sometimes people will be very vague. They'll be like, oh, honesty is important. Honesty is good. Honesty is useful. Yeah, true. But can you be specific? How is it useful? How is it important? Can you explain a time in your life when it was important? Okay, it should really explain how it affected your life with some examples. So it's not enough to say, I've always tried to show kindness to other people. You really should give an example from your life. And it might sound something like this, like, I have always tried to show kindness to other people. It is hard to do that when other people aren't showing you kindness, such as calling you names or even hitting you. Sometimes I have wanted to call them names or hit them back, but instead I have just walked away. Okay. So writing process. Sometimes we assume people who just put the pen on the paper and out come beautiful sentences with perfect spelling and perfect grammar without any effort at all. But in reality, writing is a lot of work. Most people who write for a living follow certain steps. And They don't necessarily follow these steps in order. They kind of go through circles, but we're going to talk about them in order just because it's kind of easier for our first time. So first step is pre-planning or brainstorming. Second step is the rough draft. Third step is revising. The fourth step is editing. And then we have our final draft or publishing. We're going to start talking about pre-planning or brainstorming because I honestly feel like it's the most important step and is the step that is kind of the hardest for most people. I think they don't teach this step enough in schools, basically. Okay, so quick reminder, the 7 grandfather teachings are bravery, honesty, humility, love, truth, respect, and wisdom. So you're going to pick one of those that you think is important. But how do you pick? Some people might look at that list and they instantly know, well, this is the one that's most important to me. And they already have some ideas about what to say about it. And if that's the case for you, that is great. Go ahead and start writing. But if you're looking at the list and you're kind of feeling a little overwhelmed and you're not really sure what to say, here is like a little writing exercise you can try. Set a timer for 5 minutes. So put that on your phone. Pick any of the words on that list and just write anything that comes to mind when you think of that word. It doesn't even need to be a sentence. And if you run out of things to say, then pick it onto the other words. Okay. Do that for 5 minutes. At the end, you'll be able to see what you had a lot to say about and what you didn't. And it won't even take you that much time. So here is an example of what that might look like. Okay. And this wouldn't be for a full 5 minutes because if I did that, I'm a pretty fast writer. You'd see a lot, but here's an example. I'm going to be using a different virtue, not one of the grandfather teachings, so that you aren't tempted to copy me. So I picked the word grateful. Grateful, being thankful for things, noticing the good stuff in life. What is my good stuff? Family, children, health. I kind of ran out of things to say, so I just grabbed another word, hardworking. Always worked hard, babysitting, volunteering in school, maybe not with housework. Why is hardworking so important? Show you have values, skills, help others, help yourself, not lazy, not waiting for others to give your stuff, feeling confident that you can do it if you can try. Now, this is all useful. I couldn't just hand that in by itself. It's not complete sentences. It's just kind of random phrases and thoughts. I would need to go back and build that into full sentences. But when I look at the two words, it's really obvious. I had a lot more to say about hardworking than I did about grateful. So I would pick hardworking. And again, if you're intimidated to start writing, my biggest trick when I don't want to do something is I set a timer. Set it for 15 minutes, set it for 20 minutes, sit down, write as much as you can for 20 minutes, and then just stop, walk away, take a look at it tomorrow for another 20 minutes. Do you like it? Can you fix it? What do you need to do with it? And then you can hand it in. If you give yourself a small set bit of time, it can be a good way to get into an assignment that maybe you're feeling intimidated by. And then, if you get to 20 minutes and you still have more to say, then you can keep on writing if you want to. But you've given yourself a little time limit so that you don't have to spend a lot of time on something that maybe feels overwhelming at first. This is a different example of brainstorming where I kind of was like writing little clouds, thinking about random things. You can see here, I had a little bit more to say about bravery and humility. I'm not sure which one I would pick. I'm not done. I couldn't hand this in. I won't mark this. If you hand it in like this, I would not mark that. I would have to pick one of them and then write sentences and put it all together into a paragraph. So here's an example. Oh, one more way to tackle it if that isn't working for you is think about one thing you've done that you're really proud of and think about what qualities helped you accomplish it. So, for example, maybe you're proud of yourself for being a good parent. Okay. Well, how did you do that? What do you think makes you a good parent? Was it being honest, bravery, respect, love? Let's say you picked the word respect. Okay. How did respect help you become a better parent? What are some examples? And then once you begin to write some of those ideas down, it gives you some words to write with into some sentences. So let's say I think I'm a good parent because of a dedication instead. I never gave up, even when my partner left me. I made sacrifices to keep the kids fed. I worked overtime to make sure I could buy toys and clothes. So those are all some examples of how I used the teaching in my own life. Okay. Here is an example of what an assignment like this might look like. And I'm running short on time, but we have enough time for this. Patience is the grandfather, I should teacher teaching I found most important. Now I know that patience isn't one of them, by the way, guys. I'm just doing this as an example because I don't want people to just kind of use mine, which sometimes happens. Okay. The reason is that my parents were very impatient people. I grew up acting like them and was often very impatient with other people. Eventually, I realized how much this bothered other people and began trying to show other people the patience I wished my parents had shown me. As a teacher, you need patience to repeat certain ideas or concepts many times before students really understand them. If you get impatient, young children can get frustrated or even scared and begin to hate school. Many things in life take a long time to do and require patience to get to the end. I have needed patience to finish school, find a good job, find a good partner, and to raise children. I have even needed patience with myself when I have trouble learning new things. But if I get impatient with myself, then I just want to give up. Having patience with yourself and others is important if you want to see results. Patiently waiting will bring results more effectively than trying to hurry things. Okay, so that's my paragraph. Now remember that I would want to talk to myself: is the content good? Have I used specific examples? Have I written incomplete sentences? And I need to underline the subject. Look at the beginning. It isn't always the very first word. It is here, patience, that's my subject. The reason, here's my subject. But if I look over here, eventually I realized eventually isn't a noun. It's not a person, place, thing, or concept. That's just kind of a little time word that I put in the front. Sometimes we call those transition words. It's actually the next word that is my subject. Okay. And sometimes remember, a subject may be several words, like many things in life is the subject there. Okay. Sometimes a sentence might have two subjects. Remember we talked about that? Like me and my partner might be a subject as well. Okay. There were some other things I wanted to talk about, but I'm not going to because I'm running out of time. There is some other information there about punctuation. And then there's some interesting stuff about commonly spelled words. Not that we're going to do that. If you're stuck having some ideas and that paragraph I gave you isn't a big help, you can also check out a YouTube videos. There's one put out, hang on a second, 7 Grandfather Teachings by, why does it keep going? Hang on. Ontario Native Women's Association, and it has different people talking about one of the different teachings and what it means to them. So this is kind of a great place to get some ideas. Obviously, don't copy them. I know what they say, so you don't want to just copy them word for word. But if you're having trouble thinking of something to say, this is a good place to start. All right, that is assignment 1. Tomorrow we will look at assignment 2. If you're having any kind of trouble getting started, reach out to me and I would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for showing up, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.